I always like to try to understand things from somebody else's point of view. That's what makes us human beings, is we can see things through our worldview and then try to reconcile another person's worldview. So I thought that I would do due diligence and come up with all the reasons that somebody might vote for Kamala Harris. Now, the first thought that came to mind, if you want somebody that can land a Chris Rock-like joke.
These opportunities are equally available to women as well as men. Because there's an interesting fact, in case you didn't know, hard hats are actually unisex. Everybody's laughing.
She's so funny. Then go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris. If you want somebody that will continue the practice of shutting down U.S. energy production, raising prices, and making us more reliant on foreign powers like Venezuela, then by all means, go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris. It's an excellent reason. If you're one of those people that likes to see prices rise continually at the grocery store and the gas station, then Kamala Harris is your candidate to vote for. If you want the Department of Labor to issue jobs report that they revise downwards again and again and again, well, Kamala Harris, that's your girl. My friends, and here's a big one: protecting democracy. If you want to support a party that sues RFK in order to keep him off ballots, and then when the calculation changes, sues to keep him on ballots when he's asked to be taken off ballots.
Me now in a dozen states. I've been in trials for the past 3 weeks. I've spent most of my time not campaigning, but sitting in court in cases that are trying to get me off the ballot. And the Democratic Party now is suing me in all those states to make sure that those people cannot vote for the person they want to. When I was growing up, the Democratic Party of RFK and JFK was the party that was fighting for voting rights. It was fighting to make sure that every American could vote for the candidate of their choice, no matter whether they're black or white or where they lived, or Democrat or Republican. Now the Democratic Party, today's Democratic Party, feels so unconfident about the candidates that it's putting forward. And it feels the only way it can win the election is by getting rid of the opponents. And either using the courts against President Trump to lock him in jail and to embarrass and humiliate and discredit him, or using the courts against me to just to throw me off the ballot. Why is the Democratic Party suing me in frivolous cases?
On what ground?
I spent a whole week in a trial for that case. For 2 cases they brought, and another week in another trial for another case.
And you had to pay for this?
It's costing me $10 million to defend myself.
The same party that is achieving a magic trick that would make God himself blush by changing Kamala Harris from the most unpopular vice president in history with lower approval ratings than Joe Biden into the second coming of Barack Obama, a candidate that received exactly 0 delegates in her presidential run of 2020. The same candidate that they're installing after a coup of the sitting president, one that she has such faith in his acumen, his power, and vigor that he's not even running. Yes, my friends, vote for Kamala Harris by all means. If you want to see repeated BLM and Antifa attacks, in other words, the Democrat enforcers, go without consequences because they are on the correct side of the political spectrum and race relations, then go ahead and vote for Kamala. It's a good idea. On a similar vein, if you want a president who will advocate that the public help bail out rioters and arsonists, as she did at the outset of the George Floyd riots in Minnesota, Kamala, she's the one that you should absolutely vote for. If you want to see 10 million more illegal aliens streaming across the border, including Venezuelan gangs that have already taken over multiple apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado, while they close your schools, your recreation centers in order to house many of these people, while they are given more than Social Security recipients that have paid into the system just for having come across the border and acting as Democrat surrogates to get their number of electoral votes up in the states of California, Colorado, Oregon, concentrating in them in these areas and in jurisdictions where congressmen that are blue can be voted in. Well, if you favor this, then go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris. It's a very good reason. If you want to see the continued weaponization of the Department of Justice to go after those who are deemed to be on the wrong team or are advocating the incorrect positions, like those who dare to confront school officials with their children being inundated with racial animosity being taught to their children and being put on the terrorist watch list by the FBI, well, Kamala Harris is your girl, my friends. It's a great reason to vote for her. If you want a continuous spew of word salad,
I think of this moment as a moment that is about great momentum, inspired by, yes, optimism, inspired by a crisis, no doubt, but inspired by also our collective ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And that's critically important.
To be vomited upon the public. And world leaders like President Xi or Vladimir Putin, where they are going to have to literally wipe it off of their shirts, then Kamala Harris is your incoherent president that you absolutely must vote for. If you're in favor of price controls that have worked incredibly well wherever they've been tried, for example, Venezuela, Cuba, and former Soviet republics, it might give you bread lines and ugly shoes, then by all means, vote for Kamala Harris. If you want to be addressed by somebody who is frequently drunk,
Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
cheers to Kamala. She's your girl. If you're in favor of seeing more confused children be encouraged to have their genitals chopped off, paid for by your tax dollars coming out directly from your pocket, or given drugs that are chemically castrating, that are given to sex offenders so that they don't repeat. Well, if this is what you want for children, Kamala Harris is your girl, y'all. If you want somebody who was the border czar, who hasn't been to Europe either.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
Then go ahead, my friends, and give Kamala Harris your vote. If you want your tax dollars sent overseas to pay for war and munitions, Kamala Harris is your girl, y'all, because she'll be responsive to the deep state and the interests of the weapons manufacturers. If you're hoping for an increased probability of nuclear war, which would be really exciting for many a people, well, Kamala Harris will lead us there. And lastly, if you, like so many of your brethren, have been hypnotized to value and cheer on the continued destruction of America and our values and freedoms, then y'all have no choice but to vote for Kamala. Me personally, I disagree in going in these directions, but it's always good to steelman the other side. I'm voting for Donald Trump and America will remain free until Kamala is elected.
Daddy, it's time to go.
It's time for me to go, I'm told. Peace.